all that?
Yeah.
Now we're doing it again because now I've got 2 clips.
Yeah.
I have to load 2 clips. I want to load 1 clip.
You just want to load 1 clip the entire time.
1 clip, and I'm going to chop it up.
Okay.
I have 100 little clips.
Well, he's the editor, so I'm.
Yeah. Do it again. That was very good, though.
Hi, welcome to Ruffian Recorders. This is Howie Beno.
Hello?
I'm Brandt Gassman. We are here to talk about Jonas Young-Borra.
What's up? How we doing? What do we do now? So, it's 2018. I'm not really happy with the music I'm producing. My friend Maria says, I know these 2 guys, Howie and Brandt. You should check them out. We got in touch through email, and then I came over here to the studio we're in right now, and we started working on tunes. I sent them about, 20 demos? Like 20?
Yeah, it definitely would have been at least, I think,
at least 20.
At least 15. There were quite a few, and I think we went through every single one on the first day and had a conversation, and we recorded none of them.
That's right. Yeah. So.
Well, we tried to record one of them, but
Yeah, we were trying to record one of them, but in the end, none of the demos were actually made into this set of songs, because Jonas, the maniac that he is, came in every single week that we agreed to work on a previously agreed upon song with a new demo of something that was actually quite a bit more exciting than whatever we'd had 7 days before. So we were constantly throwing stuff by the wayside. The pile of destruction that led to this EP is, I think, rife with songs for someone that we will sell to one day, but they're not for this.
I kept constantly having to apologize to these guys, especially Howie, for the non-billable hours that was spent literally producing
and editing
songs
and
that
recording
that don't exist now.
And
so, if you want me, luckily,
Well, it was the third song we did.
yeah.
Right, it was the third song that we kind of tackled, and actually the fourth technically, because we had the first one. I forget the name that got rejected just straight off. The really
Hands of Time.
Hands of Time. Yeah, Hands of Time ended up in the garbage pile, and so we did a couple songs, and then we ended up with If You Want Me. If You Want Me was the first ballad, which was new territory for us because we'd done a couple of upbeat things, not like super dance floor, but like things that people could groove to around like 105 BPM,
Right.
really funky.
Which was interesting because, starting off with a ballad as your first thing out of the gate was, a challenge because you still have to establish the rest of the work from that point.
I think it was also the first song that we did that lyrically had a new perspective for you.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like, this song, I was, going through some stuff personally, as I always am, but particularly at this time, and I was feeling kind of nostalgic, and when I wrote the demo of this song, it was like with the John Hughes kind of hopeless romantic kind of feeling in mind. And as this is going to be the first release, and it's going to be released by the time you're already watching this video, it's a good song for like pre-Valentine's Day, because the concept of the song is about a young guy that leaves town, kind of goes to figure out his life, and then he comes back home and he runs into, his high school sweetheart, and they're staring at each other, but she can't tell him, even though she wants to, I love you. And it's a pretty simple message, but musically and conceptually, it's got like a throwback feel, but we kind of made it into this modern kind of pop ballad type thing.
We're obviously working in the world of modern pop music, and it's a glorious world, but it's also very, I wouldn't say, not necessarily frivolous, but it's very transactional. It's not that often anymore that you hear like a really sincere kind of like love song, and not in a cheesy way, like something that deals with the real shit of human relationships. And so to have a lyric that kind of went in that place while still doing modern pop, I thought was really interesting. And that's where the John Hughes bit comes in. It's like that's kind of legitimate, real, nostalgic love, I guess I would say.
So this was the original demo that I sent over, which you guys then worked on a little bit.
Yeah,
And you kind of rearranged, right?
Yeah, this is kind of where we started. There's a few kind of interesting things happening here. Jonas came to us with a lot of very finished ideas in terms of music. There were always verses and choruses, sometimes bridges. We were presented with a lot of really thought through work.
Mm-hmm.
But then those ideas morphed quite a bit.
Yeah.
This was an idea that generally did not morph.
Obviously, the things that were adjusted here, the guitar we did here,
Right.
you guys readjusted just on this demo,
Right.
the drums a little bit. But in terms of the arrangement, this song was pretty much clear. I think we had a pretty good arrangement. The interesting thing about working with these two guys is that it's a collaborative process. Growing up playing in bands, for me it was always working with a bass player and a drummer, or then my dad would come down from downstairs and be like, "That sounds like shit. Try this," and then he'd disappear back, and I'd like, "Where the fuck did he go?" And I was always like, "What's happening?" But this was our band. This was the band for the songs I brought in, and then we worked together. That's why it took such a long time to make these tunes, because yes, the songs were thought out, but the adjustments happened here. Even a lyrical change. The original lyrics were not.
Yeah, a lot of lyrics.
A lot of lyrical
A lot of
changes.
lyric changes.
And a lot of musical changes. And it was really well thought out. And what was here changed a few times. And this was one of the ones, if not the first one, right? Or maybe, yeah. That we
There
actually
was Sex and Shame. I believe
Sex and Shame before
this one.
which you'll hear later. But yeah, this was one of the ones that I thought actually moved pretty quickly, comparatively, right? Once we kind of had a workflow going.
Yeah, it did. And I think an important thing to talk about in this song, really for the whole record, is that the part or non-part of the guitar, because Jonas came to us with this kind of idea that we were going to make something that was really interesting in a nightclub environment, given his professional background. And I thought that was a really interesting challenge, because so much successful nightclub music, despite its success, is kind of deadly boring. And so we were tasked early on with trying to find some things that could maybe put some fire into that. And Jonas himself, has studied guitar. He's an excellent player, and we were always referencing bands like the Cars and Tom Petty that had like a guitar background, had nothing to do with dance music at all. So we were trying to find ways to put guitars in the songs, and I think this is a great example of something where guitars is present, but really, it's not kind of interfering with with the groove here, this kind of arpeggio, that we did in the room with Jonas, and this was not in the demo. This is something that we thought made the song less of what 2000s club music has been about, and more something legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, little parts like that are all over the record. And the guitar wasn't a lead instrument on this song or on the record at all. It's kind of like the guitar was meant to be. It was a rhythm, it was a supporting instrument. And we found these places for little funk kind of stabs like that. Simple, but interesting. So I'll write in, Live 10. Ableton is the name of the company, but the program's Live. Or actually it was Live 9 at the time, right? So Live 9, and then I would send over these rough ideas to these guys, and we would then further it in Live, and then when it came time to mix, we would go into Pro Tools. Or Howie would go.
So,
Right.
before we continue,
Go ahead.
why don't you talk a bit about vocal production?
Okay. In terms of producing these vocals and in terms of trying to lay them into the mix, we knew that Jonas wanted something a bit more fresh, a bit more messed with, a bit more sample-y sounding. So what I did basically was, once the song was ready to mix, I took these vocal elements, specifically the leads, and I ran them through a whole slew of effecty kind of plugins just to see what would work and what would not work. If you solo some of the elements, for example.
My face, could you recognize?
Something else to mention, I'm not the only vocalist on this. Victoria Hill, who is a young woman that I met in my senior year in college in my senior thesis class, was a really trained singer growing up, and actually moved to Nashville after school to sing. And then when it came time to do another vocalist on this album, I said, you know what, Victoria will be the perfect person. We stayed in touch, and she's featured on most of these tunes.
For example, that's sort of a rotator rotary cabinet, like a Leslie. On top of that, we've layered
My face, could you recognize?
that.
Said nothing's wrong.
That's the stutter effect.
That's cool.
And a vocoder on top of it. Here. So, as you can see, what I basically did is I bounced all these different disparate effects on the lead, and then I sort of cut them in and out to make it more interesting and make it more
the idea was we wanted as many things
robotic.
We wanted as many things to happen
Right.
as possible once. We did not want just looping, repeating things throughout the songs. If you hear one of these effects, it pops in and out, but it doesn't. It's not consistent.
Right.
Every kind of line of a verse is its own special thing with its own little effect section.
How many vocal tracks did we end up with this on this tune?
Probably around 50, I think.
At least.
So when you think about 50 vocal tracks, that's, it takes a long time to do this. And like they said, this isn't like cut and paste loop kind of recording where it's just like this. There's actual, individual parts here, and there's a lot of moving parts to connect into the full production. This is also one of the songs that we use saxophone on.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's, live instruments.
Let's talk about the sax for a second.
Yeah,
so,
let's talk about the sax.
Because it's a really exciting bit of this entire process. So Jonas had the idea to bring the sax player, which I thought was lovely because I love that kind of 80s throwback vibe. And Jonas's manager hated it, but we overruled her. So you found
Connell. Yeah.
Connell where? You found him in Union Square, correct?
I found him playing on Memorial Day.
Yeah.
At the beach, the day I ran into you.
Ah,
He was playing. It was like a windswept kind of day. It was a nice day, right? It was October. No, August. August, yeah. I don't know. Labor Day is Memorial. Labor Day. Labor Day is in August, right?
Yeah.
It's
Labor
Day. Sorry, it's Labor Day.
The end of.
And I'm seeing this redhead guy play the saxophone, like dancing on the beach, and I'm like, this guy's amazing. He had a business card. I grabbed it. I emailed him, and we ended up talking. And I said, you gotta come in on a session. Got him some nightlife gigs. This guy's now like playing all over the place. And Connolly, you're very fucking expensive now. Good for you. But we got him when we got him, and he's awesome.
So we had this guy come in, and I didn't have any expectations, but this guy comes in and he's fucking Andy McKay from Roxy Music and Duran's, like completely slaying it on anything we give him. Like we wouldn't even really direct him that much. We would just play the track and he would riff for a half hour and then he'd collect his paycheck and split. And Jonas would get him an Uber.
Yeah, great. It's a fucking great
there was,
deal.
I mean, there was nothing that we did to provoke this. And I love this because it makes me feel like Saturday Night Live in the 1970s. It's that's that gritty New York sound. It's such a great addition because it's we had Jonas, we had Victoria. The sax is another vocal, really, in the way that it functions in the song. It's doing the answer lines to Jonas's parts, and I thought that was just a great timbre to have. Really, it was amazing. Like it's so wonderful to work with someone like that, and Victoria.
Yeah, Victoria.
It was really the same way. There was so little direction involved. People just coming in and you play them the song and they do what their instinct tells them, and here we are.
In terms of instruments, besides the vocals and effects and the guitar,
every song was a hybrid. As you can probably see,
I think there's a lot of 808 and 909 stuff going on.
So as you can see, looking around, if you want to plug into something real here, that's certainly like what we do.
take a look at this bed here.
The bed of gear. The gear sleeps on the bed. I don't, unfortunately. But
The gear gets laid, basically.
the gear gets all the. Is that going to make it to the cut?
I hope so.
Probably.
How long do you think, from when I brought in the demo to when you finished mixing before we sent it to Scott for mastering, how long do you think, how many hours do you think you put in on this?
Oh man.
Ooh. Wow. I would say every song was at least a week. Like when I say a week, I mean
24 hours.
7 times 24.
Yeah. So we're talking 160
So we're
hours.
talking like almost 200 hours.
Yeah, someone do the multiplication for me because I'm not going to do it now. But yeah, it was a week kind of for every track.
Yeah.
I mean, let's put it this way. When each mix was put up, each mix was 3 days long.
Mm-hmm.
Or 4 days long. So if you're talking about 8 hours times 4, that's at least another 32
And then
hours
we
right there.
we did at least 3 revisions on every mix.
Yeah.
No mix got through until 3.
The rubric for doing pop music, or whatever you want to call this, alternative pop, indie dance, pop, electro, it's a lot more difficult and more of a process to create this kind of stuff than it is a basic hip-hop track or a blues track with just a guitar player. There's so many little parts, like just even that little guitar thing and all the effects on the vocals and all the adjustments, and then working with a douchebag like me that wants to make everything sound a certain way and then changes his mind constantly, like John Kerry in 2004. And you lose elections that way. But I think we actually won this one, and it sounded pretty good. It's just an enormous process to write pop songs that sound good, especially in the way we do it. But I think that thoughtfulness is why I'm so proud of the production and what we ended up with.
There was a lot of care that went into making things that we liked in the room, but then figuring out, okay, if we have to present this in the world of, you know, clubs and streaming and nothing, no one listens to records anymore, like, you know, no one puts on 40 minutes of music consecutively at an artist this sequence. You know, we were thinking about, okay, how can we make an impact in that world? That was not lost upon us during the process. And I'm proud of that. Like, I'm not sitting here claiming that we made, like, Dark Side of the Moon. That would be totally irrelevant, for lack of a better description. I'm glad that we looked at the songs kind of on a standalone basis and thought about their role in, you know, someone's DJ set, someone's, you know, randomly generated, algorithmically generated Spotify world. In addition to someone who liked everything and maybe got all the songs together. I think it doesn't punish people for being casual consumers, but it rewards the people who are who care.